I mentioned Plan of Attack, and one of the things I missed from back in the day was how much easier it seemed to be to do custom maps on Source Engine. Like with multiplayer, you could just create a server and random motherfuckers would join and it would just download, you know. Or if they were in your friends list, you just, create a server and they join, or I guess you could give them the IP, but maybe it's still like that, but I don't know, it just seemed different back then. I don't know, but like that's how I met a lot of motherfuckers back then. Like for an example with Plan of Attack, but really any multiplayer Source game. I would be fucking with my own custom maps and I'd create a server and I'd have a motherfucker join, they download the map, they connect, and I'd be like, hey, this is the map I've been working on. And they'd be like, oh, hey, that's, really good. This is really good, whatever. And, I have done one kind of full on multiplayer map. Like I would fuck with stuff like that, but I never really finished anything. It would mostly just be kind of run around and shoot each other, whatever. So I was never really a fan of like objective game modes. But, I did make one at a point that had actual objectives for one game, and there was a server that they had the map in their rotation and they kind of play tested it. And, they told me they loved it. Even though on the forums I'd have motherfuckers talking shit about, oh, that doesn't make sense and blah, blah, blah. And, it's one of those things to where the terrible level design in Half-Life 2 is fine because it's Half-Life 2, right? Or like Gabe Newell being fat is fine because he's Gabe Newell and he's like, he made the games we like. But, me being fat's a problem, right? It's just all these, psychotic, one-sided double standards humans have. But when my multiplayer map gets put into a proper server rotation, everyone loves it, even though it already looks better than most maps, but it's not even close to finished. Most of it was on that particular map. Like there was some spots detailed out, some of them I'd spent more time on, but most of it was just a rough layout. And there's a lot that I could have changed, you know, if I had continued with it, but you know, it didn't really matter. Um, that game, nobody really plays it now anyway. But back then it was like 10 years ago. The one time I put out a multiplayer map that's like intentional for like a big server to play, everyone loves it. But there was just something kind of almost, I'm not sure how to describe it, magical. I don't know. It's like almost magical in a way. I don't know how else to say it, but just maybe it was because it was novel for me at the time to just, be playing my own level and just somebody joins, right? Um, but I met a lot of motherfuckers back then doing that, and they'd add you to friends. Y'all might play games or whatever, or you might meet other level designers. But I don't know, the Steam Pipe update kind of forcing everything to the VPK file format. I don't know, something just feels different with Source Engine, like at that time when it was on GCFs, and stuff was also easier to mod, just in general. But Plan of Attack, I showed up to that so early that even on the so-called beta 1 that you can still find on ModDB, the kind of the main map, as I mentioned, I think it's called Spark, but I didn't mess with the name today, so I already forgot from the last time I played it. But that was like the most played map. But the ones that I find of, the one I find of it in even the beta 1, none of the betas I found, but even that first one, so to speak, it doesn't look anything like I remember. But so I don't know. Maybe I was probably playing it before I even had a ModDB page. And I look at the ecosystem of modding and how much different it is from back then. And yeah, it just seemed like there was so much more to it. You had Planet Half-Life, and there was this one I was reading, Developer Wiki, or maybe it was Combine Over Wiki or whatever. But they mentioned this defunct website called, I think, Valve ERC or something. And when I followed the Wayback link for it, I was like, holy fuck, I remember that website. But like most of the stuff related to, especially these older video games, is just all dead now. Like the original developers of Planet of Attack released the source code, I'm pretty sure they said. And I don't know. I've never really messed with that. Like as far as source modding, the majority of what I've done is either levels or I have done custom models, custom textures, custom sounds, like static models. I've never done like characters or like rigging and animating, something like that. But anything kind of environmental design based, I've done. I've done my own, Foley sound effects. I've done my own voice acting stuff. Um, but I've never really messed a lot with programming. Like I do use scripting languages. I actually edit my videos in a scripting language, but like proper programming, I've never really messed with. And presumably if they released the source code, which apparently happened a long fucking time ago, which I didn't think it had been that long, but presumably that means that there's stuff it was doing that was, you know, required the fucking code to, I don't know. Stuff like that. Maybe I might try fucking with it at some point, but I don't know. There's a lot of shit with like the old school, like Gold Source and Source games that I just wish would get like some kind of like revival, you know. Like there's several pretty much, you know, defunct or just no longer being worked on, whatever you want to call it, mods that I've thought about trying to fucking kind of revive. I mean, there's even been some that, I've seriously considered messaging them and being like, hey, I mean, the mod's kind of dead, but I mean, I'm more than happy to make levels for this mod because it'd be like, some mod of a, it's like a source mod to like recreate another video game. Like one of them I seen was a recreation of Metal Gear Solid 1, which I thought was interesting because I never even knew about it when it was actually in development. But years and years ago, I had actually made a custom map. I don't remember which game. It wasn't a release. It was just, one of my own maps. Maybe I still got the VMF somewhere. I know I have at least a screenshot of it somewhere. But I basically recreated that spot that's from the demo, which is the only part of Metal Gear Solid 1 I ever played. Actually, I think there was 2 demos, but that's the one I really remember. I think another one was like a VR mission or something. But the demo disc I had back in the day, you come out of the water and then you kind of like sneak to the elevator and you ride the elevator up. That's where the demo ends. But I had started making like basically my own recreation of that, and I even took screenshots of it from like a top-down perspective. So I wouldn't mind working on something like that. Back in the day, I did want to play Metal Gear Solid 1. Um, like I always wanted to try Twin Snakes or whatever it's called. I think it was on GameCube, but I never got around to it. But you know, I mostly played Metal Gear Solid 2. But yeah, like shit like that. It's like, I mean, is this mod dead? I mean, I'll make levels for it. I do that all the time. I'll try to recreate levels from like Kingpin Life of Crime or Painkiller or I don't know, just any kind of game. There's a lot of them have similar vibes anyway. Speaking of that, like Red Faction, every time I play Half-Life 2 now, what is it that the rebels say? But every time they say it, I always expect them to say Red Faction. like I have a ton of like Mandela effects overlapping on all these games because at almost the same time, 20 plus years ago, I played Red Faction, Half-Life, Deus Ex, Deus Ex Invisible War, Red Faction 2, Half-Life 2, Kingpin Life of Crime, Soldier of Fortune 1 and 2, and lots of other games of that era that there's lots of different things they have that are pretty similar, like thematically or whatever. And so they'll, little different pieces of the games will all get kind of misremembered in my head because there's also that, but then also a lot of them I played the console version first, then PC, and all those differences get mixed up. But I was re-listening to the Half-Life 2 music, and I think it's song 31. I felt really familiar listening to that song, and it finally hit me that it reminded me of the piano of one of the songs from Red Faction 2. And everybody pretty well knows that Red Faction 1 was inspired by Half-Life. I'm kind of wondering if Half-Life 2, at least its music to some degree, had been inspired by Red Faction 2. Because even though most motherfuckers hated Red Faction 2, it had some pretty fucking awesome music in it. But yeah, the piano in one of those fucking songs is just perfect. But I don't know. I guess I would just like to fucking, live in the past. Be 13 years old again and just be amazed with the fact that I could create my own levels in a video game. Like I said, in some weird way, it feels kind of like magical. Just, you would have never thought something could be so cool, but then, I don't know. As usual, humans just shit all over everything. Valve can't quit fucking with the games. They break everything. The motherfuckers that play the games are all stupid fucks. And, that's pretty much what it is. Either the pseudo-immunity is intolerable, or it's a mod that, if I tried working on it, it fucking went nowhere. But maybe I'll do that. Just remake levels from video games just because I feel like it. Maybe if a mod comes along, I'll be like, hey, I made this map. I don't know. It would be nice to try to keep some of these mods going, either finish them up or bring them back or whatever, but I don't know. As I had mentioned with that, level I was making inspired by the fucking Romanian elevators. Part of me, when I started making that map, I also intended to make it into it started as basically a corridor with a staircase and an elevator. And really quickly I decided I wanted to basically remake the military base level from Painkiller to the point to where I took the music from that level and stuck it in the map. I just have it playing on loop on an ambient generic. So you can't even turn it off like normal music because it's actually part of the level. But yeah, making the towers in that level was something I thought about repurposing that staircase elevator thing into like part of one of the watchtowers or whatever. Painkiller had some amazing level design. And the ambient effects. There's a sound effect that plays on that's actually from Starship Troopers, where he's like, give me two up in the tower now. OP there, OP there. He's like pointing different ways. I don't know. The ambient effects were really fucking good like that too. And kind of borrowing from, different sources like that. Half-Life 2's ambient stuff was pretty good as well. Like that one creepy music that plays off of that one TV that if you find it and look at it, G-Man's on there, and then it like turns itself off or whatever. I don't know. I might make some of my own stuff like that. Just that cool atmospheric shit, but whatever. I'm almost at the end of this video, so I'll just end this one here and continue the level design shit in a separate one.